Hi, I'm Ashley Thomas. I'm one of the postdocs for CREOS, and the title of my talk is Intuitive Sociology and Open Scholarship, or Why Developmental Psychology is interested in open scholarship. So the term intuitive sociology is something that developmental psychologists use to describe the way that people think about the social dynamics in their world. So this can be applied to many different social situations, sports team, etc. But here we're looking at how researchers think about their field. And the question that's driving my research is what makes people practice open science? And so if you think about decisions to be open, there are going to be a lot of things that come into play. So, obviously requirements will affect people's choices. So requirements from journals or institutions. You could imagine something like financial incentives, although I've been told that past programs to give people financial incentives to share don't work that well. But the thing that I'm interested in this is this other piece, which is people's sort of own motivations. And another thing you could do is imagine a lot of ways in which things like maybe people want to be a good person, maybe there's personality differences. So those are things that other types of psychologists might study. But what I'm really interested in is this piece about when people enter the field as a graduate student and when they get experience in their field, what do they think about the social dynamics in their field? And how might that affect their decisions to be open? So based on a survey that we did with a bunch of researchers, just putting a call out on Twitter, we found that people do think about their fields in sort of a coherent way. So I don't expect you to be able to read all of these items, but there are things like there's a hierarchy, ranking, or pecking order in your field, and the people at the top have the most influence on which scholarship is valued. So there's sort of this scale that's about hierarchy and competition, and then these two other questions that are about whether it's important for people to cooperate and collaborate. And so the question in this research project is does this affect people's decisions to be open? And one hypothesis is that researchers who see their field as more participatory will share more. And researchers who see their field as more of a team endeavor, or see their research as more of a team endeavor, will share more. But then we realized that it could be a little more complicated than that. It could be that depending on how a person sees open science, either as sort of a way to get ahead or as a way to cooperate with other researchers, that these things might not have this direct relationship. So the way we've been doing this is we've been visiting lab meetings in the School of Science, me and my advisor, Rebecca Sachs, who's an associate dean. And at the beginning of those lab meetings, we give people this survey that asks them a bunch of questions about how they see their field, and then also their decisions to be open, and also how they see open science. But we realize that that's going to be a really complicated thing to analyze, having not had this survey previously. So we also, before analyzing that data or looking at it, we sent a survey to all of the School of Science. And I'm just going to give you some really preliminary results from looking at that larger survey. So on the left, you can see a word cloud. So this is the fields that people said when we asked them, what's your field? So the bigger the word, the more common it was. So chemistry, biology, and physics are the most common. We also asked them how many years they've been practicing in their field. So you can see that it goes all the way from 0 up to 50. You can see that whether people think their field is hierarchical or competitive sort of falls along this normal distribution, where the most common answer is in the middle. And there's not very many people who think it's totally not hierarchical or competitive, and there's not too many people who think it's totally that way. And most everybody thinks that cooperation and collaboration are important for success. The other thing that is kind of nice is that most people plan to share. So at least most people who opted in to take the survey plan to share. And this might look really different for the more representative sample that we'll get that we've already gotten by going to lab meetings. The participation rate is super high. It's almost 90%. So we're seeing that as a more representative sample. And so eventually we want to know how these things relate. How do people's social perceptions of the social dynamics relate to their plans to share? But I don't quite have that data yet. So thanks again. And I'm super open to answering any questions or receiving feedback if you have any. Thank you.